Welcome to the Reiki Business Collective, where Reiki business owners come together to share information, support one another, and serve the world. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, interviewing and inviting Reiki business owners to join the conversation in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group. Thank you. Welcome, and thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Reiki Business Collective. In this episode, I am again with Bruce Taylor of rootsoflife.org. So excited to have Bruce here again. So thank you, Bruce. I'll tell you a little bit about Bruce, and we are going to jump into talking about retreats and tours for your Reiki business. Bruce Taylor of rootsoflife.org has studied and practiced Reiki since 2006 in the US, Hong Kong, and Japan, and has completed the Usui Reiki Ryoho levels more than 10 times. In addition to teaching Reiki globally online and in person, he also serves as a holistic wellness coach and practices and teaches sound healing, plant medicine, yoga, breathwork, and meditation. He is based in Europe and Hong Kong and leads retreats all over the world, including to Kyoto, the birthplace of Reiki, in April. And you can learn more at rootsoflife.org/Kyoto. Bruce,
Right.
Welcome to the Reiki Business Collective. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Christian. It's wonderful to be back again and to have an opportunity to speak with you. It's always an honor. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And for those tuning in who have not heard the previous discussion with Bruce, he talked to us about clients and finding clients in our Reiki business. I will drop that link down below so that you can tune into that incredible episode as well. But here, Bruce is with us today to talk about leading tours on our Reiki business. So Bruce, please do tell us a little bit about your Reiki business, even specifically how you got started doing tours in the first place.
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure. Well, it's been a long and winding road to get here, that's for sure. Much of which I think we're going to talk about in this conversation. But I've always been a bit of a travel bug, and the idea of blending my career with the ability to travel to places that I love and places that are very dear to me was always kind of in my crosshairs, as it were. I remember even back in college scheming with my friends, trying to figure out ways that we could make a career out of travel, but with things that we felt to be meaningful and things that we felt to be authentic, both for ourselves and for anybody who would join. So I don't mean the scope of just kind of package tourism and things like that, like really getting to a cultural route or a culinary route or a environmental route, like something that we were really going to be drawn to see. The world is such a beautiful place and such a fascinating place, right? So it's such a pleasure to be able to, try to run tours and bring people to these places to witness this grand spectacle that we call humanity.
Yeah, beautiful, Bruce. Bruce, one thing I heard in there that was really striking was your desire to really go beyond the surface level with the experiences that you put together. And so, really diving into the culture, or even maybe literally into the earth with some of your plant medicine work,
Yeah.
but to really go beyond the surface level. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a beauty to being a tourist in many ways. There's a beauty to, I'm just trying to think out loud how I would phrase this. When we go someplace new for the first time, I love having that kind of tourist hat on, the hat that can put all of your responsibilities aside. You're kind of there back in your home country or your home, point, your city or whatever, and you can just be present, right? And that means maybe present for the culture, present for the culinary arts, present for the environment, present for the difference in texture and language and sounds and experiences and things like that. But one thing that I love is, when we have that level of presence from a tourist perspective, it can quite often be very, very meaningful, but it's also in many times very surface level. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not profound. I've had many life-changing moments at that surface level. And it's that impetus of the exploration of the unknown that kind of beckons me to want to explore things deeper, especially with things that are of deep resonance with me, like Reiki, for instance, or meditation or plant therapy. So when I'm in a place or a culture that can also merge these kind of currents in my work and currents in my personal life that I appreciate so much, it really begs me to come to try to go deeper into that microcosm and really explore it. Right. So this idea of kind of a graduated experience moving deeper into a culture to find really the resonance and why it's nagging at you. Right. Because there's an infinite number of cultural experiences we can have on this planet, and there's an infinite number of environmental or culinary or whatever experiences. Yet for everybody listening, and for myself, and I'm assuming for you as well, Christian, why is it that there's a handful of them that really call to us, that really kind of urge us to experience it deeper, right? And so for me to go all in on those experiences and to try to hear that calling the best that I can. And then if other people are there with me and also want to hear that calling, then it's such an honor to be able to guide people in that experience, right? So it's kind of a graduated experience deeper down into that rabbit hole, if you will.
Yeah, that's really profound, Bruce. This idea of really exploring more deeply why particular places call to us and why we might feel the impetus to go to certain places. And so that, that level of reflection really does dig much deeper than that surface level. Oh, I just want to go there. Oh, it's pretty, or oh, I like the weather, or some other reason. But to really think about what really is at the center of why we want to go there, really, I think takes that idea of the journey and the travel, the tour to another level.
I agree. And it calls at it's almost as it nags at something in me. Like there's I've had this, like in Kyoto, for instance, I've had moments there where I'm walking past, a temple or a trail or whatever, and it's almost like a force within me, my spirit, Reiki, Daikomyo, whatever you want to call it, pushes me like you have to go down this thing because there's something that I need to discover about myself. Right? Everything that we see is just a reflection of our internal space. Right? And so the entire experience on these tours, or when you're a traveler, a tourist, whatever you might call yourself, a voyager, when you are going on these journeys, it is a deep moment of reflection and investigation of your internal environment, because literally everything you see is just a reflection of what you're trying to discover about yourself. Right?
So, Bruce, would you say that a successful tour is one that purposefully incorporates that knowledge and incorporates moments for reflection on those points? Or is that something that is almost, in a sense, up to the person who is going on the tour?
Well, that's a good question. And I would think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's up to the individual. You could be with a group of people who are all, laying on the world's most beautiful beach. And maybe 90% of them will just need the opportunity to relax because their internal space is just fatigue. And maybe 10% of them will have a esoteric transformative moment where their internal state was calm enough that they were able to let go or to find maybe a deeper meaning in that experience. But everybody's on the same beach. right? So the experience is going to meet everybody where they are at that moment, and even the provider of the experience or the environment of that experience. It's simply going to meet the people where they are. Now, on that, when I'm putting together my tours, I'm designing them in a way that it's almost like a calling to people who are ready to experience something that is beyond what would normally be offered. And so it's almost like a calling card for people who are ready to explore one step or one or five steps or however much further down the road we can go with access to things that are not normally offered, or conversations with people that are going to help all of our understanding of the reason why we're there. Most of my tours are focusing on Usui Reiki Roho, right, in Japan, so that's what I would be referring to here with that. And so from the start and opening that conversation, it's a way to get those seekers in the conversation at the start for that tour. But I've had many experiences on, just by myself in Japan, not even on a tour, or accompanying other tours where I found things that are deeply profound about myself where I wouldn't have even anticipated it to happen. So it can happen at any moment, which is the beauty of it.
Yeah, I love this, Bruce. It's an invitation. You're inviting people not only to join you on the tour itself, but that there are invitations embedded into the tour itself for people to, if they so choose, to accept the invitation to go deeper in those
Mm-hmm.
moments. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
those can be, wow, that runs the whole spectrum, Christian. These moments, it's beautiful. It's, for me, it's on my own journey, my journey of helping other people along with their journey, their own personal moments that are held in private that of course we don't witness, but all of these profound shifts that take place. It's humbling to be a part of the facilitation of that, a part of the delivery of that, and a part of the journey. Because again, everybody that I see is simply also a reflection of myself, right? So the time and the effort that I put into these tours, and the time and effort that I put into the authenticity of these tours, is a reflection of my commitment to the practice, I hope, anyways. And when people are there and they consume that experience and it furthers their own journey, then I become a reflection of their internal space, right? The mirror goes both ways, of course. And so they are doing the experiential evolution. They're having the experiential evolution on that tour that then I become a reflection of, and it becomes part and parcel of this beautiful kind of yin and yang dance, right? Of discovery. It's incredible. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
That is incredible. And Bruce, I just had the realization that, every tour is in itself an amalgamation of 1,000 different tours, in that, all of the people who are there are having their own experience, and they're having their own all kinds of experiences within the experiences. And so that one single tour is not just one tour, it's comprised of an infinite number of tours.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just said it perfectly. It's incredible because you never know. It could be like, the influence that a teacher had on you, Christian, 10 years ago, of something that was just planted in the back of your head might be the straw that breaks this new line of insight open. And you might not even notice it, but it clicked on this thing because everything was in the right place. And nobody else might even witness it. You might just sigh and be like, oh, I get it now, or whatever. It might seem completely inconsequential, but now there's a new Christian standing in front of everybody because that 10-year journey had just been completed. So it's a tour of 1,000 tours upon 1,000 tours upon 1,000 tours. I love it. It's a great way to put it.
So Bruce, talk to us a little bit about your experience with tours, because this one coming up in April to Kyoto, this is not your first time. You've done this multiple times. So, talk to us about your experience with creating tours, leading people on tours, and how that journey has unfolded for you.
Absolutely. I laugh about this because I have any teacher that's listening. I think we have a disproportionate head start because of all the hard yards we put in the classroom. I used to be a high school teacher, and in Hong Kong, I was teaching, as well. And I used to take kids abroad and take kids on tours through Hong Kong. And well, if you want to really sharpen your teeth, then take a group of eighth graders into a foreign country, and you'll be the best. Any tour you could lead on that is after that is going to be the piece of cake, I promise. So if anybody's done that, you've already got a big head start. But that's where it kind of started for me as a school teacher, to be able to bring my students onto these experiences and to slowly recognize my desire to help craft these really unique experiences. So even though, it would be mostly school sanctioned, I was always figuring out ways uh, to take the tour to a little bit deeper of a level, right? Trying to figure out other people that we could talk to, other opportunities for the kids to meet, maybe other scholars at other schools or whatever it might be, to give more opportunities. And it's just something that I really enjoy. And so once I got away from teaching, and I was living in Hong Kong, it's when I started working then full time with Reiki. One piece of advice I would say here, and this is what I did, is it started really small. So, and start with no risk as well, right? And do this for years if need be. We were running retreats in Hong Kong for years, and we would run maybe 2 or 3 weekend getaways. Hong Kong, if you don't know, is a city comprised of many, many islands. So there's ample opportunities for you to get out of one of the most densely populated places on the planet, and you can get into wilderness very quickly. So there's a lot of places that you can go that can feel like you're a world away. So we would utilize that and have, retreats on holistic wellness, couple therapy, intimacy work, and so on. And the next step after that was to start offering retreats in Europe. And we started to offer those. I'm saying we, my wife and I, do this together most of the time. Not most of the time, but when in these ones I'm referencing for sure. The Reiki trips I run myself. She'll be there. She's usually the videographer of the whole thing, which I'm very grateful for. And so, so when we started to run these retreats in France, then that's where the necessity of more of a global exposure started to come into play. Hong Kong is kind of a microcosm, and we know a lot of people there. The client base is strong enough that we could, circulate it around in a relatively enclosed city and generate the interest. Now, Europe is a different story. And the same in the US. When I run retreats in the US, it's a different story. You have to have that global presence. Now, in order to get the skill set, the confidence, the understanding of marketing, which I don't want to act like I have mastered because I don't think you ever can. Yeah, it's very difficult. That's been that's Christian. That's been how many years now? That's been 7 or 8 years, of at least of doing this. So that's kind of how I've gotten into this. And every retreat is an opportunity for critical reflection, really, and it should be really robust, I think, critical reflection, right? So what went well, but importantly, what didn't go well? How could it be improved? What did the learners and the participants get out of it, and how could they have benefited more in the retreats? And so it's a constant reinvestigation and revamping or redesigning of the experience as well, which has led then to the culmination of this upcoming retreat in April.
So Bruce, in all of your years of running retreats, all over the world, are there certain things that you make sure are an element of each tour? So I guess, in other words, is there a framework that you work off of after so much experience and so many years of doing this? Are there certain elements that you make sure to incorporate in every tour? Or are you just so, well versed at it that you don't even really think about all of the those kinds of logistics of like, oh, make sure that we do this and make sure that we offer this. Is there like a framework that you use, Bruce?
What's that quote? The line between genius and insanity is paper thin, or something like that. I think I think that's the way that I would like to say that it's genius, but I think it's more insanity. When you're asking, I don't think there's any common thread on the retreats. When these were started to be offered, because they, again, start small. We started with small groups of people, and a lot of the work that was being done on these retreats is very, very personal work, right? So it very quickly narrowed down to becoming bespoke experiences for the individuals on those tours. And I think what I've done is carried that bespoke idea forward, but then I've opened it up to a larger group, right? So this retreat coming up in April is not in any way the same as the one that I had last year in Japan, right? It's an evolution of that experience in many ways, but it's still bespoke. It's still an experience that you can't get anywhere else, right? It's tailored to take people deeper into the roots of Reiki than you would be able to have on a normal tour, because that's about doing our work honestly. It's a dedication to the practice of Reiki as well. And it's also an honoring of people in Japan who are super excited to get that word out, right? So I wouldn't say that there's a common thread that goes through, except I guess for the thread of the reimagination and the evolution of each experience, right? I think that would be the only common thread. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And so, Bruce, tell us about this upcoming trip, because I do encourage everyone to check out the website, rootsoflife.org/Kyoto, because it's pretty incredible what this trip is including. So please tell us about it, Bruce, because I think that if anyone wants a kind of model for like a really killer trip, it's this one. So tell us about it, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah. There's the thing that has always struck me, Christian, about Usui Reiki Roho is the gentle depth of the practice, the forgiving, very peaceful graduation that you can take into the practice. And I love how it helps you to understand that when you think you have figured it out, you actually don't have anything figured out. There's so much more to have, under in your knowledge base when it comes to Reiki. And I think in many ways, to really appreciate that, you need to be in Japan. I liken this to, it's like the Hajj, or it's like any other religious pilgrimage. It's like going to Israel or going to the Vatican. You might be a Christian, but to go to the Holy Sepulchre in Israel, for instance, like, okay, this is a totally different story now. It's what I learned in church, and I grew up outside of Chicago, right? So like what I may have learned in my small church would pale in comparison to me sitting there, or like being in Istanbul and going to the Hagia Sophia and just like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a whole new world. So on this tour, it's a reflection of all that I've learned in my time studying and practicing and teaching in Japan, and a desire to bring others to that root, to that base, right? So they can really see the depth of our practice. So on this tour, there's going to be things that have never been offered before, opportunities to learn with senior priests and monks who have never held public audience with anybody before, coming from Mount Kurama, Mount Hiei, the senior Shugen practitioner and priest from Shogo-in Temple, and his son. So who is the kind of the managing senior monk of that temple, will be running private Goma ceremonies, fire ceremonies for us. There's all these opportunities to be with kind of the living torchbearers of esoteric Buddhism in Japan, of which Usui Reiki Roho is kind of the thread that binds all of these esoteric practices together. And so on the tour page, I've just sent out an email to my email list today, and I think that this is a pretty appropriate comparison. It's kind of like, imagine having audience multiple times in private with people of the caliber of a Thich Nhat Hanh, right? And I mean small group private audiences where we can talk about the mythology, the esoteric roots, right? The Buddhist roots, the significance of these areas, Mount Hiei, Mount Karama, the practice of the Kaihogyo, which is the marathon monks and the worshiping of the deity Fudo Myo, and how all of that ties together into the culmination of this journey that a lay monk named Mikao Usui took 101 years ago, right? Because that's where the whole story is. It's not random that he was there and he chose this one area, or rather, the area chose him to have this experience. So if we can go there and we can learn from the people who are the kind of the current gatekeepers of that knowledge, I mean, what an honor. What an honor. And what a difference that means as opposed to going there or, just being kind of Karama's incredible, but Karama with an audience of, senior priests is a different conversation. Right. So it's just incredible. And it's a culmination of months and months and months of work. And I'm very happy to talk about this because I know people will want to know how to maybe plan something like this. Months of work to try to organize the logistics of this, and especially to organize the tour. I encourage everybody to go look at the landing page and see the itinerary. Pretty much every day of the tour, we're doing something that has never been offered before on a Reiki tour and is not open to the general public, right? And pretty big, grandiose things. So it's just an honor to be able to do this. Absolutely.
Truly humbling, no doubt, and just truly humbling it would be to be there for sure. Bruce, I'm assuming that you must have some really great connections, and that the connections that you have really allowed you to be able to offer something so profound.
Definitely been a lot easier with the connections, that's for sure. I can never take any credit for this, right? I mean, the credit on my end would just be to the insanity of trying to organize something like this and the persistence of pushing through to make this happen. Yeah. It's all credit goes to the contacts. And I would say as well that anytime that you're organizing something, a tour, it doesn't matter the magnitude. You need to have contacts of people in the place that you're going. And I would urge people, I'm thinking now a little bit about like plant medicine experiences. I would urge people to seek out high caliber contact. I don't want to deviate on the plant, but I think plant medicine is a very apt example here. If you're taking people somewhere else where they might be experiencing a psychedelic state that could be very precarious, you better know, if you're the tour organizer, you better know that the people who are going to be guiding your clients are top notch. And ideally you have worked with them on many, many occasions before. You have a deep relationship and trust with them, and a very strong working relationship. So all those things, I have with my contacts as well, but it takes a long time to build those. So it takes many trips, to where you would like to go, making inroads and meeting people. And I know for me, getting out of my comfort zone, asking people who may or may not speak any English at all, and then fumbling through Google Translate to try to get my point across when you have somebody who is politely giving you 2 minutes of their day when they don't need to. Yeah. And be prepared for things to not work and to be embarrassed. And that's all part of the journey, right? Yeah.
So Bruce, it sounds to me like this trip is really very life changing, and this isn't the first time that you've offered a tour. And so I'm wondering, what kind of impact have you seen on the people who have been on your previous tours, or what kinds of insights have they shared with you, or the impact, of course, knowing the thousands and thousands of possibilities within each tour. What kind of things have people shared with you about the impact that this kind of tour has had on them, particularly, Bruce, for those of us who are Reiki practitioners going to Japan, going to the birthplace of Reiki?
It's profound. It's very profound. I have quotes and things from people, of course, that have been on my, I won't quote them because I don't have them verbatim, but, life changing, affirming, putting all of the pieces together that were, I've heard this a lot where, I learned some things, but there were wide open holes in my understanding of the practice. And this filled every one of them and cemented them into a structure that I didn't even think existed. Right. So it's like I came here thinking I knew what Usui Reiki Roho was. And I'm leaving recognizing that this is a journey far beyond what we are ever really told Usui Reiki Roho is. Statements like that, those are the most profound things that you can hear. When people, we love Reiki, obviously, everybody listening to this knows the impact of Reiki. So imagine an opportunity to come together where all the little filaments and roots of that practice of Reiki, metaphorically speaking, become fully intertwined with your essence, your DNA. Like you arrive maybe calling yourself a Reiki master, and you leave recognizing what Daikomyo really means. You know what I mean? Like there's a profound shift that can take place. Again, not dissimilar to any other religious or spiritual pilgrimages. When you see people, I've seen all of these things, when you see people on maybe a religious, like some of the more famous religious pilgrimages, you see people reaching the destination and almost having out of body experiences, or, a catharsis, huge catharsis, right? You see all of these things. And Usui Sensei had a catharsis, right? On Karama. It's much the same. So like you said, Christian, imagine somebody has taken 1,000 journeys in their mind before they've even signed up for the tour, right? That's got them to the point where they're like, I don't know, it's going to be a lot of money and I've never been to Japan, but I'm going to do it. So that means those 1,000 journeys have been successful. And now another 1,000 journeys are going to unfold. And all of that culminates at a moment of enlightenment on Mount Karama, for instance. It's stupendous. Yeah. All the hyperbole you want to add doesn't do it justice, right? It doesn't do it justice.
Wow, I think stupendous is just a great word for it. And Bruce, to hear you talking about it, like I could feel it. I could really feel it, and it's powerful just to hear about it. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. So Bruce, in all of your experience, do you have any general tips, some do's or don't do's for a successful tour experience?
I think building off that idea of starting small and starting humbly, and keep humility at its core, right? At the core of your experience. I'm very honored to be a teacher of Usui Reiki Roho. I'm very honored to have the platform that I have and the ability to teach to others. It's a deep honor. I'm very honored on the previous tour to have been joined by my teacher and supported by Hakutan Inamoto Sensei, my teacher. I mean, what an honor to be able to teach next to him. It's incredible, right? But recognizing the humility in that, we're simply passing the torch on. It's not an opportunity to stand higher. It's an opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder, right? So hopefully we can keep passing that torch on. So keep that in mind and recognize that it's not easy. And the bigger or loftier your ambitions are, then the complexity of it is magnified exponentially, right? So the further away you go from your comfort zone, the harder it will be, right? So I'm very fortunate that I've lived in Asia for a long time and have been to Japan many, many, many times, always to study Reiki. So it was very familiar to me. And in each of those opportunities of being there, I always had this idea of, I think I'm going to do something here retreat-wise. Now, I don't mean that every time I went to Japan, I was actively working on a retreat, but it was in my subconscious somewhere. And so there was always kind of a radar out thinking like, well, that would be interesting. That could be a really beautiful thing to put together. I wonder if this person can help, and have the audacity to ask, right? Have the audacity to ask, because the courage of just simply asking, yeah, what's the worst thing people are going to say? I'm sorry, regrettably, I don't have the time for this, but I wish you the best of luck. So if you can hear that from somebody and not be offended by it, then you're you don't have anything to worry about. And make something that, at least in my opinion, strive to make something amazing, because life is amazing, right? There's tours everywhere for everything. So maybe start by offering similar tours, but find your niche. Develop your comfort in a similar tour and the safety of the familiarity there, but then find your niche and grow your niche, even if it doesn't work. For every successful tour I've had to cancel tours because they weren't successes, right? So just recognize that, and then stay persistent. If this is your calling, if you've listened this far, it might be your calling. So stay persistent with your desires to make these things and make them special, whatever they are. Make it special. Yeah.
Beautiful, Bruce. Yeah, thank you so much. And I love that you added in there that you've had to cancel, and you've had, experiences that haven't gone well. I think that's really helpful for people to hear, so that if they have a tour that doesn't go so well, they know it's not just them. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And let me share something quickly to that might even be more written. So just even on the last tour, because when you're there, boots on the ground, you have to be nimble and be dynamic, right? And the last tour in Japan, if anybody's listening who was on that tour, you'll remember, and I'm sure you're already laughing about it. We have just come together as a group, and I had our first restaurant ready for a very beautiful lunch before we went to the Shogun Temple, which is the temple for Shugendo, the practice of Shugendo in Kyoto. We were going to meet the head priest and all of that, which we're doing on this tour as well, and more so. But prior to that, we had lunch, and one of the guests on the tour had missed the bus. So we had already got separated. And I was like, oh no, come on, where is she at? And she said, no problem, I'll meet you there. It was no problem. But she was like, Bruce, the restaurant's closed, right? And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, this is not a good look to be on the first hour of the tour. The first thing, the restaurant's closed. It wasn't. I had it booked. Everything was fine. And, but I remember, again, my wife was there, and it was immediately like, in that moment, that's when you have to be really nimble, right? So have backup plans. So as soon as she was saying like, that restaurant's closed, there was definitely a moment of like, my heart started beating, and what am I getting? No. Okay, where are we going next? What have I seen? There's a great restaurant here, Google Maps. I know it. I've saved it. I'll call them. Of course, I called the first restaurant, and they're like, yeah, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Of course, we're open. Your table's ready, right? But have all of that stuff in mind, because there will be hiccups for sure. That just happened last year, and I'm sure there'll be something on this one, but that's part of the experience. And also, that is your opportunity, I think. In that moment, what's happening? The people on the tour are looking at you like, okay, how are you going to handle pressure? We paid to be on this tour, so prove to us that we invested correctly, right?
Right. And too, Bruce, on a Reiki tour as well, how are you going to handle that?
Yeah.
Are you gonna practice what you preach, kind of thing as well?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be anything. Like, what I'm saying, to make things unique, I don't mean life-changing, most amazing thing. I mean, maybe it's a 2-day silent meditation retreat in a town that has never offered that before. That's just as unique because you have no competition. You have your niche, right? Maybe that's in your hometown. And if it's never been offered before, I bet you're going to find a lot of the friction that I've already talked about in you trying to launch that retreat. So, like everything's going to come together, and that's going to be just as beneficial in the world. So find that niche, find your locale, find what's comfortable for you, and go all in on it. It takes a long, long, long time, to organize these. If I do 2 retreats a year, then that's a full-time job for the whole year. That's 40 plus hours of work per week, 50-ish weeks a year with a little bit of vacation, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And I don't know that people, fully understand that. So you need to get up in the morning if you're a Reiki practitioner or you're, into holistic wellness, maybe do with your clients, and you need to dedicate, I dedicate probably 5-6 hours a day, and it ramps up until the tour is done. And then there'll be a little bit of a lull, and then it'll start again. So it's big. It's a lot of work.
Yes, for sure. All of those moving parts. And I really love, Bruce, that you mentioned, your own local area and how, you don't have to have a big tour and somewhere far flung. It can be right in your local area and be very impactful as well. So thanks for mentioning that too.
Of course. Of course. Remember, Daikomyo is everywhere, right? We just need to find it. Yeah. We just need to be present for it.
Yeah. So Bruce, so for anyone who is considering going to Japan, what, you've been there plenty of times. What are some things that people should know, should keep in mind and consider if they are thinking about a trip to the birthplace of Reiki?
There's one thing that is very timely right now. It might not be the most glamorous thing, but ironically, it'll be probably the most impactful. Right now is the cheapest time to go to Japan in the past 30 years. The yen is almost at its weakest point against the dollar. So for example, when I was there just last year, the yen has already dropped. I don't know the exact amount, but somewhere between 15 and 20% cheaper than what it was last year. So the savings it's completely noticeable. I mean, it's enough to get you to go to Japan now. So it's a perfect time to go, right? The thing, it's 30% cheaper than last year and probably 60% cheaper than 5 years ago across the board. It's incredible. So the buying power is there. So, if you've never been to Japan, if you've never been out of, maybe the Americas or Europe, and it's your first time to go abroad, I know that there could be some trepidation, there might be a little bit of nervousness or whatever. And you probably won't believe me until you experience it, but there's literally there's nothing to worry about. These places are profoundly safe, obnoxiously safe if you compare it to where I grew up, right? It's like people in Japan, out of courtesy, when you are stopped at a stoplight at night and there's a car facing you at the other stoplight, they turn off their lights because they don't want the lights to hit you in the eye. Like it's just when people who have never been out of the country, when they leave an experience like that, they're like, you've got to be kidding me. I've never felt, you can see people relax, right? You can see it release. The cultural idiosyncrasies in Japan are incredible. Everything is a little bit exaggerated, but the vast majority of the aspects of life in Japan are meditative based. So it's not that I remember when the tour was done, we went and got a couple of nice drinks, and we went to a really nice bar, super beautifully designed inside. And the bartender was like, no, we don't have a menu. Just tell me the fruit that you like, the emotions that you're feeling, and tell me what like really makes you happy. And then I'll customize. And then it's all art. Everything from there is a meditation. So you can really see them like, okay, what they said, let me just close my eyes and get centered and feel it. And it's incredible, right? So that goes to the food, to the wrapping, to the flower design, to the temples, to the cleanliness of the trains, to the punctuality of transportation. Like everything is polite and clean, and the food is incredible. And and then you get to go there and you get to learn the roots of the practice that we love. So it's like win-win all over, right? Incredible. And and there were many people on my tours. There have been many people on the tours that have never left uh, the States, never left Canada, never been out of Europe. I mean, Europe collectively it's very easy to travel here, right? And see different cultures, of course. In the States, it's like state by state, it's still America. Here it's France and Spain, and it's a different language and stuff. So there is that cultural difference. But when you could see the cohesiveness of the group after that kind of initial nervousness wears off, when people relax their guard and let the culture start to seep in, it's beautiful to see, to explore the food and everything. It's incredible, man. It's incredible. It's incredible.
Lovely. Yes, thank you so much. It sounds incredible. The tour that you've put together is really incredible. I do encourage everyone to check it out if it resonates with you. Of course, Bruce, I'm assuming they can reach out to you with any questions.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a contact form on the tour page, so you're very welcome to just fill that out, and I'll get in touch with you at any time. And if you'd like to have a Zoom call with me about the tour, because I'm obviously very appreciative that there could be a lot of questions on it, and I'm happy to arrange that as well. And there is early bird pricing until the end of January at quite a substantial discount. So this tour is very, very strictly limited to 20 people. One of the experiences that we have is a rural Japanese homestay in the deep wilderness beyond Mount Kurama. And this is an area of very rich spiritual significance, because there's all these sutra burial mounds all over the place that are ancient, where people were writing down the Lotus Sutra because they thought that it's too much to talk about, but it's just an incredible place, and it's still being excavated today. So they're still finding scrolls and statues and things from 6, 7, 800 or plus years ago in this area. So we'll be staying in these traditional homestays, having beautiful food, staying with monks and everything way back in deep Kurama. But that area is why we can only have 20 people, because the sleeping and lodging arrangements are very, very limited. Right. So I do expect the trip to fill out with the itinerary and everything that's on offer. I do expect it to fill up very quickly. Yeah.
Wonderful, Bruce. Thank you. And Bruce, is there anything else that you would like to add, whether about treats and tours, or about this upcoming trip, or anything else that you would like to share?
I guess I would just say that if you have a calling or a desire, even if it's just a little spark inside, to want to do this, if you like to travel, if you like cultural experiences, if they really call to you, then take a risk, right? Take a risk. We only live once. I mean, so what's the worst that's going to happen is it's not going to work. And I can tell you, I'm still alive, and it hasn't worked many times. So it's literally, you've got nothing to worry about. And I'm so grateful that I took those risks, right? To be able to put these together and to now see a runway in front of me of, okay, so this is really becoming self-sufficient, and it's going to become maybe 2 tours a year with even more opportunities through Japan, and plant ceremony work going down into Chile and Peru that are in negotiations now. If I didn't have the background in kind of the familiarity, the courage, the humility, and the tenacity, and the foolishness, and everything that it is to wrap together to do this, then that runway wouldn't exist, right? So if what we're saying in this call resonates with you, then be foolish and take a chance and do it. Just do it. And if it doesn't work, do it again and again and again until it works and until you feel like this is the thing, right? Because it's beautiful. And I think the most beautiful thing, it's not the discovery of the client and the people who are there, because that's their own journey, right? But their discovery is a reflection of my discovery, like I was saying earlier, because that is actually just my discoveries, because I'm seeing it through all of these different lenses. And so it becomes, again, Daikomyo connects all of us, right? So their experience is mine and mine is theirs. So it's so beautiful to be able to offer that to others and to be there, and to just witness it and to facilitate it. It's an incredible gift to be able to offer that. So if there's a calling, long story short, be foolish, take a chance and do it. Just do it. That's it. If you've got it, I wouldn't say it like this, but take the chance as far as you need to take the chances to make it work. For me, that required me to leave a stable, good teaching career and take a risk. Now, why did I do that? And this is why I'm kind of like, I don't want to be too presumptuous here, but I always knew I could go back to teaching, right? So like maybe 1 year, I'll try one. I remember thinking, I'll give it 1 year. I'll try, I'll push. And if nothing is working in 1 year, then I'll go back to teach. And just enough was working at the end of that first year that I was like, okay, maybe 1 more year, then I'll give it 1 more year, and then just a little bit more. It was always just enough to keep me foolish. Yeah, that's what it was. The universe was always giving just enough. So that's, I'm hesitant because I don't want, don't be irresponsible about it, but also be brave and do it. Just do it.
Wonderful, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you so much for that great inspiration. I love it. And this has been such a great conversation. So I want to say thank you so much for bringing all of your knowledge, all of your experience about, the retreats and all of the ones that you've done over the years, successful and even maybe not as successful, that have really brought you to this point of being so knowledgeable about them and so able to put together a powerful experience. So Bruce, thank you so very much for joining us and sharing your knowledge and experience, as always, with all that you do. So thank you so much, Bruce.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a very, very kind outro there, Christian. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be with you. And yes, thank you. I hope this conversation helps anybody on their journey, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity to assist. So thank you for that. Very nice to be with you again, as always, as well. And for everything that you do, we were talking about this before we went live as well. Everything that you do to help people with their business, right? We were saying about how it could be one of the most difficult things to get over, right? We've all faced it. So thank you for the work that you do as well. It's beautiful, and it's always a pleasure to connect with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Bruce. And thank you all for listening in. We're honored to have you join us and tune in. And we're sending lots of blessings and best wishes to your Reiki business. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, and join in the conversation at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz, BIZ. Blessings and best wishes for your Reiki journey.